All right, let's do this. Let's grab the Houston host, the Texas Tech host, and all the other hosts and make them talk about it. A Friday night football game in my Big 12 in Texas? Hate that. This is the Dose Grande Squad.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday night, everybody. Welcome to the Dose Grande Squad. Drake Toll with you from Locked On Big 12, America's #1 Big 12 podcast. And thank you for making all of our shows your first listen every single day. Jake Hatch, Locked On Cougars. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Cougs. I don't know, man. Confusing. Cody Stovall, Locked On Oklahoma State, and Chris Level, Locked On Texas Tech. Each of them talking about your favorite teams every day around the Big 12. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. I'll talk about it extensively on my show. I had Christian Rao on. They didn't even have a Friday game or an international game, and he was ticked off about how the Big 12 has scheduled things next year. Chris Level, the weeknights have struck. Lubbock, Texas gets 2 Saturdays stripped from it. One game moved to Arlington and another moved to a Friday. It does not sound like Tech fans are very happy about this.
Yeah, I mean, the Thanksgiving weekend, and it's funny because I think that there was a lot of frustration about the Friday night game, and then a week or so later, you find out about the Thanksgiving game, and I think that everybody thought, oh, the Big 12's punishing Texas Tech. Hey, these decisions were made at the same time. I think when you knew that you were going to play on a Friday night, you knew you were going to play Thanksgiving night. Yeah, the Friday night game is just again that's a high profile game. I think obviously Parker's Cougs are supposed to be pretty good. Texas Tech is going to be pretty good, and that's one of the bigger games of the Big 12. And I think as everybody looked at it, that could have been a premium game on Saturday. So that's debatable. But yeah, I think I don't want to. And Drake, you know this, but I don't want to like speak for other states, but. And it just sounds, I don't know if the arrogant is the right word, but high school football is just
maybe,
different.
yeah.
Okay, well, in the state of Texas, it's just different.
Correct.
You don't want to have to make people make a choice over going to watch their kid or go whatever. In Tech's case, a lot of their fan base lives in Middle Odessa or the Amarillo area or the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it's just probably not near as feasible to. I mean, if I was Parker, I'd be thrilled. I'd be thrilled about this news. It's always great to play the Friday night road game, but when you're hosting it or on a Thursday night, it's less than ideal.
I want to stress that as much as I have other problems with this particular matchup being on Friday night, I do think this helps Houston. I think a large number of Tech's fan base travels for the weekend to come to a home game, and traveling for a Friday night game is a different ask than traveling for a Saturday, even morning or noon kickoff, right? That's a whole different kind of thing. Houston is sandwiching this game between hosting the Southern Jaguars and heading out to the Georgia Southern Eagles. Like, this is kind of the focal point of September for Houston, and getting a lesser crowd potentially, I think, helps a lot. But I think the big deal that's a miss for the Big 12, though, Chris, is like you mentioned, look, I'm hoping for it. I'm rooting for it. I'm going to talk about how it could happen all offseason long. This could be an Arlington preview that we're putting in a TV window that is good, but isn't like, you could be showing this off on a Saturday, making this the biggest game on the weekend. And I have ESPN's schedule pulled up right here. I understand Florida State's at Alabama. That's probably going to be one of their big time slots. I don't know if Mississippi State, South Carolina is going to be a big one. Florida, Auburn, Georgia, Arkansas, all these SEC gigs. I get it, right? But this was supposed to be a chance to show off our conference to me, and I feel like that's where the boat's been missed here.
And I think that's exactly why they're doing it. They're trying to show off the league to a national TV audience. That's exactly the point that the TV folks are coming up with. The Texas Tech's problem from a football standpoint, because I think there's actually a football benefit to playing on Thanksgiving night, possibly. But this particular case, you're coming back, probably going to come back very late from Corvallis, Oregon, the weekend before. Your week is a bit shorter and squeezed. But the Thanksgiving game, you're going to play on Thursday. And if you do make it to the Big 12 title game, that's on a Friday night. So you're going to get an extra day or two of rest and all those things, whereas some schools will not be able to do it. Now, again, that's if you play in that game, but from an atmosphere and a crowd standpoint, there's just not really a win there for Texas Tech. No, not at all.
Cody, state of Oklahoma, unless it's the Friday night of the Jinx Bigsby game, then everything else is pretty much fair game. Would it be nearly a big deal if Oklahoma State had a Friday game against Cincinnati?
No, I do think it would be a little bit different, right? Because as much as I like to bash on Texas as much as possible, their commitment to high school football is a lot more deep than Oklahoma's. However, listen, guys, everybody knows the real contenders don't play on Fridays. That's the President's Day, as Big Chief Chris Level would say.
Well, but that's a good point too. Here is you would never see Alabama play Georgia on a Friday night. The SEC,
Oklahoma State, Alabama, same thing. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You tell them, Drake.
Now, granted, Miami played on a Friday night last year. I think Florida State played on a Friday night last year. Clemson did. So the biggest brands for the ACC did. This is just part of the TV contract that you've got, and that they agreed to. What was it? 10 is it either 10 or 12 dates where there were non-Saturday windows, and that's just what comes with it, unfortunately.
Chris, we've had 2 horrendous seasons. You give me my 12 seconds of joy and happiness. Don't hit me with this wisdom and knowledge. So don't do that right now.
Let me pause at one thing from the BYU perspective, because during BYU's independent era, they played routine. They played a lot of Friday night games, and I know that Cougar fans, when they first went independent, that ESPN deal necessitated them playing some Friday night games. There were a lot of Cougar fans who were upset, and rightfully so, to what Chris and Parker are saying. And I'm kind of like Cody. The state of Utah, the high school football scene here it's important, but Texas has a whole different takes it to a whole different level. And pardon the pun, Chris. But the bigger point here is BYU fans have become accustomed to playing some of these Friday games, and in the Friday game for BYU against Iowa State, it's very advantageous. It gives them an extra day to prepare for that all-important home game against Notre Dame the following week. So in the case of BYU, I think Cougar fans look at it and say, yeah, this is exactly what we would have signed up for, because it does give that extra prep time for maybe the biggest game in quite literally years in Provo.
Yeah. Coming up, let's jump over and talk Big 12 basketball in the transfer portal. That's been a hot topic on everybody's show this week, and I've heard a lot of both good and bad things out of each of these programs, and it's a shame we don't have Derek here to talk a little Kansas Jayhawks. Coming up, Big 12 basketball portal. What do you need to know? Locked on 12's Grande Squad. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. My friends at Indeed Sponsored Jobs have been so clutch for me when it comes to hiring an intern. I hire an intern like twice a year. And workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, that makes it tough. Indeed can help you filter skills, experience, location. The stat that says it all, in the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Indeed Sponsored Jobs is the place for you. And listeners to this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support our show by saying you heard it on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Or email me, Drake, at thepartyανimals.com, and say, hey, send me that Indeed link to apply to be an intern for Locked On Big 12. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Also, if you already emailed me, email me again. My email's been weird. Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It is the Big 12 squad, and you can follow each of these shows ad-free, the Everydayer Club, Locked On, insert name here, .supercast.com. So locked on Big 12.supercast.com, locked on Texas Tech.supercast.com, locked on Cougs, Coogs.
Yeah, that's us.
Oh, good. For the everydayers out there. All right, there is the piece of the puzzle for teams like even a Kansas or BYU who haven't heard yet about their stars. Like I was reading this week, one NBA scout recommended Darren Peterson go back to college and prove he's not allergic to basketball and can play more than 11 games. There's a serious conversation happening, not just, mom wants me to get a degree, about if Nike says, hey, AJ, via the valuation and numbers we crunched, we'll give you $12 million. And by the way, we'll get more out of you playing 3 times a week on ESPN than we would if you're a Sacramento King playing on ES Plus FanDuel Network tonight. I think before we even get to the portal talk, there's a real chance some guys forego the NBA draft, come back to college. Joseph Tugler, the best defensive player in all of college basketball. Like there's a real chance you get some of these guys coming back to college basketball.
It totally depends on where that projection is. And with the way agents and things like that work now, you can more easily test the waters and come back than you could still do that in the past. It's just, I think, an easier deal now. You can have an agent with you and get that feedback. I think the big deal here is that, like, if it's Nike or a sponsor specifically, you can make Nike money on top of NBA money, right? There's no rule that says you can't get a sponsor and an NBA contract. The NIL money is being compared a lot to these like rookie deals and the rookie salaries. And the look bluntly, like Floyd Badunga, sorry, Derek, he left and he's making more money than the end of first round pick is, if the reports are true, right? That's part of it. And he should go make the most money you can. It does mean he's going to be slower to the second contract, and we don't have any of the locked on NBA guys here to break down exactly how that works. But the second, there's a big cap on your rookie deals. The second contract, the faster you can get to that money is where the real money is. The NBA, it's a lot less of a suppressed wage. You've earned your money, whatever, so you can get that second contract. It's a different deal. And so an AJ, I think, is different than like Badunga or Tugler, these end of first round guys, where it's like $3 million in college versus 2.5 in the pros or whatever. That's a different calculus.
Yeah, and Parker, to your point, let's say AJ is top 3 in the NBA draft, which he's projected at worst as a top 3 guy. That's $60 million guaranteed over the life of the 4 years. And I know, Drake, what you're saying. 1 year, obviously, ESPN and Nike obviously would be looking at that saying, hey, might be able to get more of it out of you if you're playing in college. But that second contract, the way things are projecting right now in the NBA, that second contract can be worth in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And by the end of AJ's career, this is a guy who could be making north of $100 million annually, the way the NBA salaries are projecting if he plays the type of career we expect in the NBA. And that's the reason why I love the idea of him coming back and playing in Pro Bowl, because trust me, I'm on board with that. It's a money-making machine in my world to have him playing for BYU. But the understanding that how much money he'd be passing up and delaying that by a year, I'd be hard pressed to tell him, hey, don't pass up on $60 million guaranteed over 4 years. Doesn't make sense in my book.
Yeah, and the problem, because I think there's a really good chance that Christian Anderson is going to go through the process and he could end up coming back to Texas Tech. The problem for these schools is, what do you do in the meantime? Mm-hmm. How much money do you save? Do you hold? Because this process is a month to 6 weeks away from kind of playing out in full. And a lot of times it's mid to late May before they get a real good feel for if they're going to be picked, where they're going to be picked. And, have you moved on? And if you're sitting there hoping that guy's going to come back and he doesn't, I mean, that's a big old matzo ball hanging out there for you.
Fellas, nobody's mentioned, will this executive order that comes into place August change some of this?
No.
All right. Well, Levels,
pooping on Cody again.
How rude, Chris Level.
Play nice. Play nice.
Yeah,
you think? Hold on. So you think the NIL arms race isn't going to change at all?
No, not under that. I don't. I just think because are you referencing the part about the eligibility and lack of, and we're not going to allow people to transfer, or like tell me what specifically are you
being able to utilize NIL as a weapon to transfer repeatedly, right? That no longer being an option. So we're talking about NIL essentially having enough financial incentive to keep guys from going into the NBA to some degree, right? Am I tracking?
Like bird rights and some of that stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Also, can I add another little piece to that too? That muddies the waters for me as well. And Level, then I'll give it to you to answer all these questions. With that in mind, these colleges, if they're out of, hey, we don't have the budget to bring you back. You withdrew from the NBA draft. We can't do this. Oh, you've already transferred. Well, now what? You've already got your one transfer under the belt, and your team effectively can't re-sign you for any money. I mean, this muddies the waters further. I don't know. Good luck, Chris.
Yeah. Well, somebody will pay them. I mean, like Darion Williams did the same. Did this a year ago, and then NC State gave him I think $2 million plus. So they would have somewhere. Now, what you're talking about is, okay, what if they can't transfer anymore? And that's what I'm saying is that's just not going to hold up in court. Somebody's going to sue, and they're going to say this isn't. Yeah, this isn't fair. This isn't right, and they will lose.
It's
Or the
employment.
executive order will not hold up.
It's thanks to Kurt Flood and the idea of not being able to limit where someone can work, frankly, old reserve clause and all that.
Isn't the NCAA trying to essentially do the same thing where you only have 5 years?
But the problem, Cody, is as President Trump pointed out, and I think the NCAA is also anticipating it. This will be tied up in litigation forever until they win.
Okay.
See, I think the toothpaste is out of the tube with some of this stuff.
I think the more realistic fix, though, is we've got to alter these timelines where,
yes.
And I don't know how, because people are going to tamper and talk anyway, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Right now, Chris Sinak is going to go pro, and he said, "Hey, I'm not going to come back. I'm sorry, guys." I think if you had the portal window open later and things like that, because truthfully, right now, he could decide on May 26th, I made a bad decision. And technically, he could come back to college. The issue is that by May 26th, that's a month and a half from now, we've all put together rosters. We're getting ready for summer practice. And I don't know how you shift whose timeline up and you meet in the middle between the NBA and college. But right now, players will have until May 27th to opt out of the NBA draft. Our rosters are all going to be done in the next 10 days. That's too late for that to all happen. And that, I think, is the more pressing and more realistic fix as far as the guys going back and forth to the league issue, which is only one part of this. But I think that's a thing you could actually fix, right?
Imagine that professional leagues not really having their stuff together, to help out the college folks or vice versa. But NFL draft is kind of the same thing with some of that stuff too, but it's very frustrating. But it puts the college coach in a bit of a bind, as you know, and it is what it is at this point.
As I think about that, Chris and Parker, there have been some people who have called for college basketball to become a one-semester sport, essentially moving the start date back from November to starting it over Christmas break, and then running essentially March Madness. You push it back to May. Could that be the timeline change? I know you're shaking your head, Chris. I'm just here that if that's how they want to sync it up, to your point, Parker, if they want to make it more streamlined in that regard, if you finished what would be called May Madness, then you could really kind of roll right into NBA draft prep and have that timeline play out more in line with what you're pointing out, where the rosters aren't going to be set at that point. You can actually have some more flexibility.
Yeah, so much of these issues are all calendar related, and it's just football calendar, what we're talking about here with the basketball, and it just I just don't see some of it ever moving. They're just not going to move. I mean, March Madness is their brand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's everything they are about. I mean, they expanding the tournament. Well, how are we going to do this without moving anything else? We're just going to load
that's
up
the trick,
first
Level.
four.
We expand the tournament so it takes so long.
No,
that's the trick. We make the tournament. Every team plays in the tournament. It expands it all the way out to May. It's March and May Madness.
There you go. Perfect.
I mean, what tournament was it? Okay, but what tournament was it that Paul's guys just won?
The Crown.
I mean, what is that even? And how long has that been around?
They started it 2 or 3 years. And they
years?
started the first game. I think was April 3rd this year. You have 2 weeks after the conference tournament.
It's literally a week long. It's just 1 week, and you spend half a month waiting for it to start. Chris. It's kind of ridiculous.
You get 3 weeks of practice and 4 days of basketball.
But they did get $300K.
They did.
Yeah.
Chris,
Money.
we both live in Texas. Crown is a beverage. Crown is not a tournament.
That'll buy you the right arm of a decent guard basically these days.
I'm a lefty guard. I'll buy you the right arm of a lefty guard. Yep,
Yes,
that's
right.
That's great. That's good.
Coming up, let's do it. A little Big 12 baseball action. Tim Tadlock. What do we do?
We have to.
We have to. This is the Dose Grande squad. Today's show is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you ever opened your bank account and thought, where'd all that go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, bills can get overwhelming. Look, I'm 25. I don't know how to do the money thing, and I don't I'm subscribed. I have 3 different emails subscribed to the same TV channel. Not good. Now you can control all your finances in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot. It can help you cancel the ones you don't want. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you Reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. It's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. All right. Big 12 baseball. Last week, passionate, invigorated conversation.
Where's Philip? Come on, where's Philip? I want more.
Somehow we don't like Kansas representation in baseball is not something that you usually expect to have this talk over, but they lead the Big 12 right now and have won 8 consecutive games. But I think one of the storylines, again, we need our Arizona and our Kansas guys. Arizona, their complete fall apart has disguised that TCU's hovering around 500, and Texas Tech once again is disappointed. I mean, there are heavyweights in the Big 12 that aren't doing what the heavyweights are supposed to do. Level Tim Tadlock, question mark. Okay, what's right? Are there rumblings? Are fans happy?
No, they're not happy, but okay, this isn't by design, but in fairness to Tim Tadlock, he's playing with 11.7 scholarships still, and I think some of these schools in the Big 12 are fully funded. They've got 25 scholarships. Texas Tech just chose to really go in on men's hoops and football, and I think that is being fixed for next year. But it's that they don't. Their pitching
That's
is
hard.
just
Yeah.
it's brutal. It's brutal. And he's got a lifetime contract, and everybody misunderstands what that means. It's basically just a 5-year contract that rolls over every year. It doesn't mean
Roll
that
the
he's
old
going to be.
Gundy deal.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean he's going to be paid for the rest of his life or anything. But I think the administration here understands it, but there's no really NIL going on with Texas Tech baseball. It's all softball.
Wow.
It is all it is all men's basketball and then football.
So Chris, I can tell you, BYU right now is kind of in the same boat, and the fact that BYU's top half of the Big 12 at this juncture is a miracle in and of itself. They've actually gotten surprisingly decent pitching, and this is a cold weather school. And BYU, I think, realized when they went into the Big 12 that softball and baseball might be at the biggest disadvantage in terms of just overall ability to compete. But to have BYU baseball north of 500 overall in the season, north of 500 in Big 12 play. I know that nationally ranked Arizona State's coming here to Provo this weekend. I'm absolutely floored at what BYU baseball has accomplished at this point. They harbor, I think, some small ambition of maybe making some postseason noise, but they're doing it. It's an uphill climb, and they're fighting the fight. And Trent Pratt,
hey man, you ought to put that on a shirt, man. Harbor some ambition. I mean, yeah. Kudos to you, man. I like it.
But that's the simple fact of life with BYU baseball is the administration doesn't necessarily seem to be all that I guess enthralled with the idea of investing heavily in this program. I could be wrong about that, but everything I've heard is they're not willing to do that quite yet. And maybe if they can make some noise this season, it may force the administration's hand a little bit and say, hey, maybe we need to throw a little more money at that baseball program.
Can I, as someone who works full time for a baseball team, so obviously I don't want baseball to die. Baseball is close.
Hey, banana ball's awesome. That's
it is.
Yeah. Baseball will die before banana ball does, but I think we agree on that. That's
the explosion of NIL here, like level. Let's try this on for size. You could bring in Paul Skeens for Texas Tech baseball, and they'll win the 15 games Paul Skeens pitches. Awesome. There are 60 games in the season, 55, 60 games in the season. You bring in Nigeri, who can pitch every game and do whatever you need her to do for $1 million, and you now become the talk of sports. So no one collegiate baseball team can bring in $1 million pitcher and have America talking about them because they'll lose every other game or they'll split every other game. For Texas Tech softball, you become the talk of sports. The marketing is paid off way farther in softball than it is in baseball. It feels like across the board, baseball, you can see it kind of reflected in the standings across the sport this year. It's just different.
I think the TV component of this sport, like softball, it's a fancy, nice 2-hour window.
Yeah.
College baseball, it can be 2.5 hours or it can be 4.5 hours, and that's the realistic outlook on it. And it's just a bit tricky. It's not ideal for television or the length of the game. They tried to do some things with the pitch clock and different things, but it's just So yeah, it's not everybody's cup of tea for sure.
Well, yeah, we're killing it. Well, why be good? I guess that's my point is if you're a school and you need to invest in a wide receiver and the cost of one wide receiver is your entire baseball budget, why be good at baseball? It doesn't do anything for it doesn't do enough for you, I should say, in 2026.
Unless you have a donor that is very baseball specific,
Bam.
which Texas Tech has that for softball. But then I think you're right. I think the school will largely pool their funds to fund the two sports that we talk about the most, and that's men's hoops and football. But I don't disagree with anything.
It's the money, yeah, it's the money. Yeah.
I also there's something else about the NIL with this too, where like guys have been going pro at 18 out of high school for baseball forever, right? And so like the idea of going and playing in AA and AAA ball as opposed to making not a whole lot of NIL money, because we're all talking about how there's not a whole lot of NIL money in baseball, right? Like, that option's always been there for folks. Frankly, I think that this is kind of being paid out of high school to play baseball is not a new thing unless you start putting a bunch more commas on it, and no one's doing that really.
Yeah.
But again, to Level's point, why would you unless you're a donor who loves baseball?
Unless you're absolutely enthralled with the sport itself or the team. It's got to be a passion project.
But this applies to maybe every Olympic sport, every non-revenue sport. Mark and Paula Hurd. Mark dies, CEO of Oracle. Paula remarries Microsoft. Who's Microsoft? Gates, Bill Gates. Yeah, she's with Bill Gates now. And guess who's got the number one men's tennis team in the country? Baylor. Because the wife of Bill Gates loves Baylor men's tennis. Like sometimes you're lucky. It's better to be lucky than good in those spots. Otherwise, why would you put any money toward that when football? And you see at some schools like UConn, they don't care about football. They put all the resources into basketball, but it pays off. That it's what makes them. There's no world where UConn should be a top 50 revenue team in college sports out of the 700 colleges, and they are. Without football, they are in 2023, I think it was, and they went 1-11 in football. They were still top 50 in collegiate revenue. No one else can do that.
Is Iowa State doing the same thing with basketball compared to football?
I think sample size wise, probably.
And it seems like what Jamie Pollard has said. I think he wants to cut his law. He understands they can't compete in football. They don't have the budget to win championships in football, so you might as well just give it all to college basketball.
Yep. It does feel
he's got a damn good coach, and they're rolling.
They kept him. Kept the coach. They're giving less and less money to baseball every year. They've shrunk that category.
Will everybody get that? Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
And one I would say the center. I mean, wrestling expert Cody Kosoval. Some wrestling fiasco, like the women's team. Like, there's a whole bunch of other stuff happening with Iowa State.
Gymnastics. Was it gymnastics?
Gymnastics program.
Their finances looking kind of wonky these days across the.
There was the wrestling. They had a wrestling venue they were building specific for the team, and they had to cut that. They had to cut upgrades to Hilton Coliseum. They had to cut the gymnastics team. Like that. No, they're in a tough spot.
Such a shame because they're a wrestling top 5 all-time ish argumentation kind of team, and I would say the same for Tech. Right? It stinks to hear that they've cut a little bit out of baseball, because I would say in the Big 12, Texas Tech carries a big name and a big stick in the conference. So to not see Texas Tech in super regionals somewhat often, I think perception-wise does kind of stink. But that also precisely is why you have teams like BYU that are having a really, really good season when they're not necessarily supposed to.
A college, and we can close here. A college football playoff appearance is worth 10 consecutive national championships in baseball. 10 consecutive national championships in baseball.
No, absolutely not.
The money alone, you make zero revenue in baseball off your 10 national titles.
And for your enrollment of your institution, I mean.
It's great, but like
beneficially,
numbers.
if it's more beneficial, I get that. But if the argument is what would I rather have, give me
not what you'd rather. What you'd rather have is different. I love watching good baseball, but America doesn't, and that's why the money is all in football. You're one.
Yeah. And your students are on campus to go to the big time football games. The College World Series happening when they're on summer vacation. Like that's a whole separate back of the calendar conversation.
Yeah, love it. This has been the Dose Grande Squad. Jake Hatch, Locked On Cougars. Parker Ainsworth, the Locked On Cougs. Chris Level, all things Texas Tech. Cody Stovall, talking Oklahoma State. This has been, it always will be, Locked On. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. The Dose Grande Squad.